Hello and welcome to Sound of Hope News. I'm Liam O'Neill and this is your June 6th China Brief. 33 years ago, the world saw several weeks of nationwide protest culminate in the Tiananmen Square massacre on June 4th. We begin our brief today by highlighting reflections on that tragedy. Retired law professor and China expert Jerome Cohen considers the relevance of the tragedy in today's China, 33 years on. Democratic Congressman Andy Levin was in China in 1989, and he recounts what he saw unfolding prior to June 4th. And in recent news, we look at some of the fallout of the Shanghai lockdowns. A military gunning down in the middle of the night of several hundred to several thousand unarmed citizens in 1989 is just as relevant today as it was then, according to some China experts. Retired law professor and China expert Jerome A. Cohen said in a June 1st interview with Voice of America, quote, "June 4th is even more worth remembering at a time of widespread dissatisfaction in China due to COVID lockdowns. And people simply want a better government and a better future," he said. There has been a dramatic uptick of protests in China since the start of spring, including university student protests, pot and pan clanging from lockdown residents in high-rise apartments, and online sharing of widespread dissatisfaction. Cohen sees that people of all ages are demanding changes to policies and a loosening of totalitarian rule. His remarks suggested that people see a similarity between today's deterioration in rights and the crushing of lives in 1989. He added that it is a particularly sensitive time due to the CCP's 20th National Congress. Slated for October, upper government leadership will potentially change at that time. Gao Wenqian, an expert on the history of the CCP, also spoke to Voice of America about the anniversary. The willingness towards violence then is still present today, he suggests. Quote, "Violent revolution and hostile confrontation are in the CCP's genes. They are the original sins of the Communist Party," he said. He drew comparisons between the bloody rule of Mao Zedong, the Tiananmen Square massacre under Deng Xiaoping, and the zero-COVID policy today under Xi Jinping. The CCP has no qualms about depriving people of all basic rights, he said. He believes that recent trends on social media, including #runaway, that's a reference to people wishing to flee the lockdowns, and #lastgeneration, a trend among young couples not wishing to raise children in today's China, these are both powerful manifestations of dramatic awakenings among the people, particularly the young. He believes that people are beginning to understand that indifference towards repression in Xinjiang and Hong Kong have enabled the CCP. U.S. Congressman, Democrat Andy Levin recently shared with Radio Free Asia what he personally witnessed in 1989 in the days surrounding the Tiananmen Square massacre. Levin was studying Asian languages and cultures at the University of Michigan and had traveled to the southwestern city of Chengdu on June 1st, 1989, hundreds of miles from Beijing. He recalled seeing protesters in front of a large statue of Mao Zedong demanding democracy, less corruption, and economic development. Some arrests were made, but for the most part, the demonstration was peaceful until the midnight on June 4th, when the military came out in full force. They first fired tear gas, but protesters responded by throwing stones and pieces of cement blocks. Beatings and arrests quickly commenced. Levin recalled that people who were beaten were not necessarily the protesters, but bystanders who hadn't run away fast enough. Many people were dragged away from the scene. Levin also witnessed a horrific crackdown at a Chengdu hotel, where military blockaded doors and arbitrarily arrested people inside, tying hands behind their backs and then dragging them to the ground. He witnessed soldiers kill some of them by slamming their heads against the concrete and then throwing their bodies on trucks to haul away. He yelled at an army officer at the time in English but was pushed away. The military took control of Chengdu a few days later. Needless to say, the 29-year-old Levin was shocked by these events. His testimony shows that the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre did not just occur in Beijing, but was a nationwide, well-collaborated crackdown. This is one of the many reasons why estimates of the numbers killed that day, from several hundred to nearly 10,000, vary so widely. Despite officially lifting Shanghai's lockdown on June 1st, parts of the city remain highly restricted and tensions are still high, especially over the sometimes violent tactics of personnel in all-white hazmat clothing. Referred to as Big White or Dabai, they have become a target of scorn on social media, in no small part because they are anonymous, their faces obscured, and no names or badges identify them. A recent admission on state-run media may have made the situation worse. The Chinese Communist Youth League recently posted photos on Weibo of military soldiers in camouflage fatigues leaving Shanghai. Related posts praised the military for their work. Previously, it had not been disclosed that soldiers were donning the hazmat suits. Some are now concluding that the lockdowns could be more accurately described as martial law. While the military may finally be leaving Shanghai, the prevalent nucleic acid testing seems to be staying. And not just in Shanghai, long lines for nucleic acid testing are still seen in Beijing and other cities around the country. According to Bloomberg, the government is preparing for a multi-year dynamic zero-COVID plan that includes normalized nucleic acid testing across all of China. The market value may be around 1 billion yuan. Addressing the long wait times, a Beijing city government spokesperson recently said they are trying to strengthen the nucleic acid testing capabilities so that their large-scale use can be better and more quickly normalized. And that's our show for today. Please share the video with friends and family, and thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.